One reason moths are fuzzy is to thwart and absorb the sound frequencies used by bats hunting with echolocation. Another reason is to absorb my adoration for their adorable little faces. Welcome to the CryptoNaturalist. The first thing to know is that nearly every individual corvid may be considered a cryptid. That said, it isn't as simple as are they or aren't they. No, the cryptid status of any given crow, for example, like many aspects of nature, is a spectrum, not a binary. Yet, one of the main facets of a creature that makes it a cryptid is its inherent rarity, or perhaps stealth. In short, we tend to measure cryptid status via the limits of human perception. So, how can we apply this to corvids? Don't crows and blue jays and ravens live in plain sight? If you're in their home ranges, aren't they fairly easy to spot? Well, sure, some of them. The thing is, you don't know which individuals you aren't seeing. You don't know which behaviors are beyond the reach of your senses. Earlier today, Cassandra and I were pulling out of Minnesota's Itasca State Park when a crow crash-landed onto the hood. It was instantly apparent that something wasn't right. Where I'd expect to see a sable head, the crow's body instead ended in a colorful box festooned with cartoon animals. I started muttering to myself about new species, thinking of the partially animated crypto penguins of the Pastel Islands. But Cassandra chimed in, saying she has a box of animal crackers stuck on her head. I got to admit, sometimes I miss the simple explanation and need an RV's grounding wisdom to reorient myself. We pulled to the side of County Highway 123, and I hopped out. The bird was hunkered down, wings splayed out, no doubt trying not to slide off the hood. She kept shaking her head back and forth, evidently trying to dislodge the box, but it was clear that she was low on energy. No idea how she managed to land on Cassandra's hood with her head fully covered, but crows can do all sorts of things I can't. She made a croaking, whining sound that didn't need words to convey a message of profound unhappiness. "I'm here," I said. "We'll get you fixed up." She stood up, a little wobbly, and perched on one foot. With the other began tracing a symbol on the metal beneath her. There was no mark to be seen, but I could tell well enough what she was drawing. Something like a stylized crown. Ah, I said to myself, that little doodle in the dust on my RV meant one thing. Maybe this was a more commonplace sort of crow, and maybe it wasn't. But that gesture just took the situation from the realm of lowercase c crow business and bumped it up to capital C crow business. The situation had just become a bit more complicated. You see, maybe not every crow is a cryptid, but every crow is connected to the corvid court, and by extension, the Crow King. It's both similar to squirrels and entirely different. I've had some dealings with North America's crow monarch in the recent past and the distant past simultaneously. If that sounds confusing to you, all I can say about it is likewise. Whatever the cryptid status of that crow on the hood, one thing was clear. She wasn't asking for a favor as one bird, but as a member of the court. That brought a new kind of weight to the situation. That's interesting, especially because I don't have a phone. I'm just gonna push a random button on my console here and assume from the timing that that's today's Hidden Lore segment.
Love in the City of Moths by Jamie Lackey. We pull ourselves from darkness and are drawn to our city's lights. We dance beneath them, our wings trailing a fine dusting of scales. Every caress brushes away a bit of our essence, but still we are drawn together, to dance, to touch, to mate, to flutter toward the light. We have no mouths and sing no songs. Our music is the keening wind, the rhythm of raindrops, the sound a flower makes as its petals separate and blossom. And thrumming in the background, the distant hum of the moon. Soft and feathery antennae taste the air, sample the character of our companions. We yearn for connection. Our biological clock ticks loud and fast, like frantic wing beats against glass. In dreams, we remember flashes of the before times, of bodies incomprehensibly different from our delicate winged forms. We remember having jaws to eat, chewing waxy green leaves, inching along on tiny legs connected to soft bellies. We remember the drive to spin, to nestle into darkness and change. We feel the same drive now, to find a mate, to lay clutches of tiny perfect eggs. We do not know how this step will change us. We remember hunger, but we cannot feel it now. Days pass, and we flutter in the light, and we grow lighter, moment by moment, our bodies burning themselves out like candle flames. We find love in the whisper of wings against each other, in the heady pheromones caught in tangled antennae. We find solace in each other, two becoming one, and we lay our eggs. They are perfect, just as we'd hoped. The lights of our city dim, but the moonlight remains, bright and strong and true. We feel its hum in the scales that still cling to our battered wings. Together, we will fly toward it, unsure of what happens next, but ready for the next transformation.
A beautiful piece. I love moths. Help out your local moths by turning off outside lights at night and planting native trees and plants whenever you're able. So, on the one hand, my situation with the box-helmeted crow seemed pretty straightforward. Remove box from bird. Simple. But that crown doodle had me second-guessing myself. You want me to get the box off, right? I said. The crow continued her croaking whine. She tapped the place that she had made her drawing with one black claw. Yup, I saw. I sighed. There was nothing for it. I needed to remove the box, and if it was the wrong move, and I somehow offended the Corvid court, at least I had meant well, right? Look, I love crows, but I reckon they're smarter and more subtle than I am in a variety of ways, so sometimes I feel a little off-kilter when interacting with them. I gently scooted the crow to the edge of the hood so I could get a better look. She was very cooperative. Eventually, using my little pocket knife, I was able to remove the box and inner bag from her head. I stood there, feeling a bit uneasy, clutching the box in both hands and swaying from foot to foot. "Well," I said, is there anything else I can help you with?" I was not at all confident that was the correct thing to say, but when in doubt, default to kindness. She shook her head, and cracker crumbs rained down. "Is that a no, or are you just shaking off the crumbs?" I asked. She shook again, and this time a little bronze coin clattered onto the hood. For me?" I asked. The crow cawed and flew off into the trees. I picked up the little coin. One side had a feather on it, the other a narrow, three-pointed crown. "Great," I said to nobody. I adore crows of all kinds, cryptid and more commonplace alike. But if you're listening, crows, I prefer to be left out of anything that could broadly be classified as intrigue. I deposited the little coin in my kitchen junk drawer, so I'll be able to find it again if I need it. Then I resolved to record this episode and put the encounter out of my head entirely. I'll assume that means we have a new field report, and that Cassandra has decided to expand her sound effects library. Let's take a listen.
This is Michael Harrington, broadcasting on CryptoNaturalist, frequency 11-58-1. There's a code running like an invisible stitch through nature. It's there in the deep purple of pokeweed berries. It's there in the precise trot of a red fox through the underbrush. It's there in the motionless expectancy of a bullfrog waiting for his lunch. Now, it would, of course, be madness to suggest that this is some sort of literal code meant to send messages to humankind. I'm not suggesting anything as fanciful as that. No, this code, it's written for me personally. That's the most obvious explanation for why I can see it plainly while so many of my colleagues cannot or will not. Not even when I point to a repeating symbol or a clear refrain in physical reality. Yes, I know how that sounds. A bit delusional and a bit self-aggrandizing, but grant me a small favour. Think of it as a philosophical exercise, if you like. Assume for a moment that it is true. Code, language, signifier and signified, these things transmit meaning to an audience of the initiated, yes? Well, is it really so outlandish to think that nature is trying to tell me something? After all, I arose from the same universal laws and processes that created pokeweed and bullfrogs and red foxes. That is a simple fact. It's not as if nature has no connection with me or my subjective viewpoint. Is it necessarily a function of my imagination? When I read a musical notation in the shape of a spider web? When I hear that music swelling like an orchestra from those tiny silver threads? And if nature has something to tell me, and I, in turn, pass those messages on to you, then each of us in that chain of communication represents nature speaking to herself, akin to you or I humming a half-remembered song as we fold the laundry. What could be more common? The code, the messages. Well, making sense of them, that can be a bit complex. But if you want to know the general sense, I will sum it up thusly. There are challenges today, and challenges ahead. But the world is alive with music, and part of that ever-loving song is our every thought and action. If nature is transmitting messages to me, it seems reasonable that she might also be sending messages to you. And if I may offer a small piece of advice, be ready to receive those messages. If that is madness, then I won't shy away from claiming not all madness is a detriment. This is Michael Harrington, signing off.
Are there messages in nature? Well, Of course there are. The message doesn't need to have intent behind it in order to be received, in order to be meaningful. If you seem to receive a hopeful word from the universe, better to appreciate the gift than to interrogate the motivations of the sender. Until next time, we're all strange animals, so act like it. Thanks to Jamie Lackey for today's hidden lore. Jamie Lackey lives in Pittsburgh with her husband and their cats. She has had over 200 short stories published in places like Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Apex Magazine, and Escape Pod. In addition to writing, she spends her time reading, playing tabletop RPGs, and hiking. Check out Jamie's new short story collection, Shadows on Glass, and other stories. From sentient stuffed animals to haunted terpsitones to friendly toasts, this whimsical and unsettling collection of weird little short stories contains something for everyone. And check out her new novel, Toil and Trouble, a Pride and Prejudice Retelling, which is Pride and Prejudice retold with witches. Find out more at www.jamielackey.com. And thanks to Richard Parrington for voicing today's field report. Richard is an amateur British voice actor who fled the UK for Ohio after it was exposed that he doesn't like tea.
To find bonus content and a variety of strange rewards, support our show by visiting patreon.com/cryptonaturalist. You can also help by rating, reviewing, and telling a friend. The CryptoNaturalist is written and read by Jared K. Anderson. For books and poetry collections by Jared K. Anderson and Leslie J. Anderson, visit cryptonaturalist.com/books. You'll find information about submitting your poetry or prose for our hidden lore segments in the About section of our website at cryptonaturalist.com. This show is produced and edited by Tracy Barnett. You can find them online anywhere at The Other Tracy or theothertracy.com. Thanks to Adam Hurt for the use of his song Garfield's Blackberry Blossom from his album Insight. For more information on Adam's music, performances, and teaching, visit adamhurt.com. Reminder, transcripts of this and every episode are available at cryptonaturalist.com. Stay curious, stay wild, stay weird.
Postscript. How many times have you watched a crow or raven and felt like you were standing on the outside edge of an inside joke? Yeah, that wasn't just in your head.